All right, look alive, ladies and gentlemen. This is your director of the video gaming division, and we got a big video to talk about with Marvel Strike Force. Two big things we gotta talk about. Firstly, the topic of today's video is gonna be the top 10 best characters in Marvel Strike Force. Should be a fun video, especially if you're coming to Marvel Strike Force for the first time. We're gonna be talking about a lot of characters you want to get as beginner players and characters you're gonna be shooting for towards the end game, and it's going to kind of help you understand the meta landscape of Marvel Strike Force. But furthermore, for people playing Marvel Strike Force right now, and especially new players, it looks like we got some hot news for July 2020's login. I'm going to try to explain this as best as possible, especially for those who don't play Marvel Strike Force. If you're looking to play Marvel Strike Force, July 2020's login awards should be enough incentive to try out the game, because Minn-Erva is such an important character and such a good character in Marvel Strike Force, a character you can't quite farm, and even people to this day are trying to farm this character to 7 stars. Just by logging in for July 2020, it looks like you're going to be able to get enough Minn-Erva shards to unlock her, and this character is going to be in our top 10 list. So I kind of want to make this video, one, to let you guys know Minn-Erva is going to be the login award, it seems like, for July 2020, and I highly emphasize, if you're someone considering playing Marvel Strike Force, this is going to be the time to play. And the reason why I point this out is because I myself am still farming Minn-Erva to 7 stars. Now, if you play Galaxy Series, you got to pull it out of your mind. 7-star characters aren't everything in the game. Just having a character unlocked, you can take the Gear 13, Gear 14, and whatnot, and you're going to be using characters like Minn-Erva for so many important game modes, as we're going to talk about. Over here, you see my brand new free-to-play account. You're going to be getting, it looks like, 50 shards of Minn-Erva in July 2020's login awards, and that is going to unlock her for you. As you can see, you cannot farm this character. And again, before we start the video, this character is going to be so good. And you know what? Let's start our video and talk about Minn-Erva being the first one on our list. This character is extremely helpful. Firstly, that comes to my mind for raids and dark dimensions. Currently, I'm trying to get my Minn-Erva to Gear 14. I actually highly regret having ULTRON at Gear 14 and not having Minn-Erva, especially for dark dimensions. She is going to be great for PvP, especially when you first try to go after Star-Lord and you want to put together a BK team, or best Creed team as they call it. Star-Lord, Minn-Erva with Rocket Groot and Thanos. This character is going to be great for PvP, but furthermore, I prefer her mostly for raids, the U7 raids, or whatever raid, no matter what tier you're doing. She's going to be so important because firstly, she's got a mass health regeneration type ability where she goes, she steals health from the enemy, and then she redistributes it to your team, and then she applies regeneration to your allies. So she's going to help your team survive as long as possible, and it bypasses heal blocks. There are so many healers in the game, but if you can't get past heal block, it kind of sucks a little bit. You need to have that redistribution, which ignores the heal block, and that's the main thing about it. But furthermore, what I prefer, especially for the raids, we're gonna have to make a video about that, especially for new players out there. Raids, you want characters that help you survive as long as possible and not having to use resources to heal up your characters. And the great thing about genetic reconstruction is that she can revive your dead allies. Now, if you pair this up with things like Thanos and you feed her lots of ability energy, and Star-Lord, for example, you should be able to regenerate a lot of people, a lot of energy to revive your team. So the reason why I'm getting her to Gear 14 is because I need her for the Dark Dimension 3. She is going to be a key character, especially if you want to chase after ULTRON. ULTRON's a whole different ball game in Marvel Strike Force, and one of your main goals is trying to get Minn-Erva so you can get yourself ULTRON inside of Dark Dimension. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but again, before we move on, highly recommend you log in for July, because this character is so elusive to get, and even people to this day are still trying to get this character to 7 stars. Highly recommend checking her out. Now, moving on our list, let's kind of build upon that a little bit and talk about some other great characters in the game. Now, we're going to kind of point out some characters that are going to be a bit more end game. If you watched our beginner's guide made the other day, card in the top right hand corner, we talked about how you are going to try your best to get Guardians first. That's not too hard to get as your first team, and then you want to try to move to Asgardians after that, because Asgardians leads you to Black Bolt, and I can't imagine any top 10 list out there, any top whatever list, and Black Bolt is not on it. Now, the thing about Marvel Strike Force is that it's a very diverse meta. Every character is needed somewhere for the most part. Not too many horrible characters. Almost every character is needed somewhere, and there aren't a lot of characters that are number one in a lot of things. Black Bolt is a huge exception to that, and a couple other characters we're going to bring out. Black Bolt, I think, is used basically in every single game. Your Alliance Wars, your U7 raids, and then Dark Dimension. Then you're also using him in PvP. The thing that I love the most is the unique ability. Firstly, characters can't be revived by that were killed by Black Bolt. And this is a huge counter to Ultron, because Ultron, one of the things about his kit, we'll talk about him, we're gonna talk a little bit about him towards the end, is Ultron revives, well, when Black Bolt's on the field. Nah, not gonna happen. But furthermore, when an enemy drops below 25% health, you get to attack that enemy for 200% damage, and if that enemy is villain tech, attack that enemy for 400% damage instead. Again, really trying to chase after Ultron. But furthermore, for raids especially, a lot of characters get to that 25% threshold, and you just want to knock them out one by one, not let them revive, because a lot of the times you're going to notice when you play the raids or just PvP, characters will get to that 25% and sometimes they can heal back up. He's going to put the nail in the coffin. He is the ultimate nail in the coffin. Basic's pretty nice too, because he can flip negative status effects on himself, take offense down to offense up, and then he can put even bigger damage. Sonic Scream, it just blows away the entire team. He's got decent survivability. He hits extremely hard, and he's extremely important for knocking down people left and right. This is probably the one character that is basically one of the top tier characters for every single game mode. Now, let's talk about some other fun characters on this list. I want to talk about Mr. Sinister. Now, if you're playing Galaxy of Heroes, I love giving analogies so you can kind of understand the meta a little bit. Mr. Sinister, the best way to put it is he is kind of like the Grand Admiral Thrawn of Marvel's Strike Force. And specifically what I mean by that is he has a lot of flexibility. Thrawn in Galaxy is not the #1 character, but he provides a decent kit that is flexible for moving forward into the future. And the thing that we have to talk about is clone. This basically, you target an enemy, primary target, you get to clone them and bring it to your team. And the best way I can describe this is, let's pretend you couldn't get the latest Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker in Galaxy of Heroes. Well, if you had Mr. Sinister, you could be like, I want that character. And you can create a copy of that character and bring it onto your team. This leads to a lot of interesting theory crafting moments. A lot of people, for example, will try to clone Phoenix and have 2 Phoenixes on their team. This is really the main thing, in my opinion, about Mr. Sinister. It offers a lot of flexibility for your teams, and especially if you're not someone getting every latest and greatest toy, you could be like, I kind of want to steal that character for them. Boom. I love Mr. Sinister. It's a very theory crafting prone character. It gives you a lot of flexibility, and it's a very creative kit that I do quite enjoy a lot. That's really the main thing about him. Moving on, we talked about Phoenix, for example. Here's Phoenix right here. Phoenix, you get basically, it's a 2-for-1 character, because anytime she is dying off, she's going to rise into Dark Phoenix. So right there, you're getting a 2-for-1 character special, a character that does great damage. And then the second character that's going to be reviving also is going to be doing some pretty solid damage, because when you summon her through her unique ability and Black Bolt cannot stop this summon, you get a whole other character with 100% health. So that's just kind of the one main thing there, is you're getting a 2-for-1 special, but also this character hits really hard. And what's also great is you can make everyone focus fire on her. She hides everyone in their cells. She takes everyone's debuffs on her team and applies it to herself. So that way it's a cleanser. It's also kind of a way to taunt for the team. And if she dies off, it's not the end of the world, because Dark Phoenix rises from the ashes to save the day. And she's got some other great stuff with her kit. She's got this, which is basically a mass buff dispel on a single target. If someone has a ton of positive stats effect, like Juggernaut, for example, whoop, just take them all away. But really, it's when she rises from the ashes into Dark Phoenix. Holy cow, Phoenix Unleashed does massive amounts of damage. I only got one eye, but I can tell she is hitting pretty dang hard. So really, this character is kind of a staple character as well. I use her sometimes in U7. Right now, I have her gear 14, so I'm kind of forced to use her in Dark Dimension. But again, I'd rather have Minn-Erva if I had to pick for Dark Dimension, have her gear 14. But really, this again is kind of a plug-and-play character that gives you a vibe like Black Bolt. You can use her in a variety of game modes in Marvel's Strike Force. Moving on, let's talk about what is probably, in my opinion, the nest of Marvel Strike Force. If you play Emphas Nest, you know the Emphas Nest can be quite an annoying character. Well, I think the best way to kind of label Captain Marvel here is basically the Emphas Nest of Marvel Strike Force. She's not god tier broken like, let's say, some of these other characters. They're not really broken. They're just very good. But she has the annoying and the annoyance as well as the survivability that Emphas Nest can supply for Galaxy of Heroes. Really, her unique ability, when she's in binary, she's getting extra damage, she's getting extra armor, extra resistance, which is going to be harder to apply debuffs, and she's going to be doing massive AoE damage with every time she's taking a turn. But furthermore, she has high survivability. So you're trying to chip away at her, but boom, she just heals back up. Very Emphas Nest like. She can solo a lot of teams out there. Someone just tries to clean up Captain Marvel. it could be pretty difficult not having a good team and trying to clean her up, because every time she's taking a turn, she's healing for 20% of her max health. High damage, high survivability, and then once she's in binary, she clears all the negative status effects, and then she just goes berserk, doing AoE damage. She attacks once, and she does another attack as long as she's in binary mode. So this character, it's kind of a plug-and-play character. A lot of teams out there will build a team around Captain Marvel. So a plug-and-play character that really you cannot farm in too many places, only in the milestone orbs with Agent Coulson. So when you get this character, you're going to get a lot of plug-and-play viability with this character. Hopefully, I'll get her to 7 stars a little bit soon here. But moving on, we're going to talk about 2 characters. There's actually quite a few characters on this list you want to get as early as possible. Minn-Erva, we already talked about earlier, but one of the teams you're going to farm, we're going to make a top beginner teams video quite shortly here, but one of the teams you're going to want to farm somewhere in your early process is going to be the Sinister Six. Sinister Six consisting of Mysterio, Rhino, Vulture, Shocker, and Green Goblin. They unlock 2 legendaries, and those 2 legendaries are really important. Shuri, she is bookmarked not just for this video, but she's also bookmarked because I want to get her to gear 14, which will be extremely helpful for the Dark Dimension raids. I already use her in U7 with my team right now. She's got a couple of great things in her kit. Firstly, she has ways to heal up your team. The raids, especially raids and Dark Dimension, it's all about survivability. And she can help your team survive as much as possible. She gets to repeat this right here 4 additional times. So she's going to top off on your team's health. But furthermore, over here in raids, this is really important. Allies are going to get 40% max health if they're Wakandans, but in raids, Self and all Wakandans gain 20% armor. But in raids, this is the main thing right here. When Self or ally drops below 50% health, they gain 3 deflect. And again, I don't want to talk too much about it, but raids are all about survivability, and deflect is going to help your team survive as long as possible. She's got healing capabilities right here, defense up, which allows, it's kind of one, it reduces damage, and furthermore, it kind of acts like a somewhat of a tenacity up, which helps you reduce the amount of debuffs coming onto your team. And she generates ability energy for your team so they can do their big attacks even faster. And then if the basic has a heal block, which is nice as well. Can't stress enough how important she is for the raids especially. Let's talk about that second character that you can unlock with the Sinister Six, and that is going to be Invisible Woman. Now, she's part of my arena team. She helps your team survive as long as possible, and she pulls people out of stealth. That is kind of the core things that I prefer about her kit. Bending Light right here. You get the clear. Actually, I'm very tempted to give her 7 upgrade right here. I have the ability mats. I might do it soon. Look, you get the clear negative status effects from your most injured allies, but if you upgrade it, it's going to be from yourself and all allies, which is kind of why I want to do this. You get to also clear stuff from the highest ally, apply 3 deflect immunities. It basically helps your team survive. It's a cleanser. It's also going to be clearing stealth from the opposing enemies. Loki's kind of seen in a lot of places. That's why Invisible Woman and the Fantastic Four are kind of important for countering Asgardians in Alliance Wars, because pulling away all that stealth kind of nullifies the use of Loki in Alliance Wars. So she's very helpful in that regard, but really being able to provide your team protection for your team so they can survive as long as possible. Barriers basically protection in this game, and you apply offense down, which is significant upon the enemy. Anti-stealth here, cleansing, really important. So getting Sinister Six gets you 2 solid legendaries that you can use for arena or the raids. Very great in that regard. Now we're getting close to the bottom of our list. We got a few more characters that we need to talk about. Now this one's kind of interesting. Scientist Supreme. It used to be kind of a meh character. Not too long ago, she got reworked into something pretty serious. Now I'll say this. I know the main thing about Scientist Supreme are these 2 things right here, but I kind of want to emphasize Mad Science kicks in a lot for me, because especially in the raids or in Dark Dimension, you're going to lose characters, and she has a passive revive, kind of like old Daka. That might be the best way to kind of describe her. Having that passive revive to allow someone to just come back from the dead for free is so important, because again, you want to try to not have to use any sort of resources to refresh the healing on your team. And if someone died and they revived by the end of the raid battle, fantastic. But really the thing that gets people going are these 2 abilities right here, Retro Vaccination and Field Trials. This is actually a brilliant ability. Retro Vaccination, you're going to apply debuffs to all of your non-aim allies, and you're also going to be applying a bunch of debuffs on the opposing team. Speed down, whatever the case may be, and speed down is so important because you're going to apply all these nasty debuffs to the opposing team. And what happens is when she finally takes a turn again, you're going to be transitioning all the way up to Field Trials, and now you're going to flip all these negative status effects on your team, and the other team or the whatever the opposing raid enemies, they're stuck with all the negative status effects, so it's brilliant. You put all these negative speed downs and whatnot on the opposing team, but you flip yours, all these negative effects she just applied into positive effects. A really important character, not just to try to build an aim team, but really she is a great plug and play character just because of these debuff applications and then flipping and then revives. A pretty solid character to be using, and I'm using her right now for my the Dark Dimension as well as my U7 raids. 2 more characters on the list. Star-Lord. As I said in the previous video, for beginner tips, you probably want to get the Guardians first because that leads you into Star-Lord. And we talked about Minn-Erva. Star-Lord and Minn-Erva are kind of the core. If you want to get ULTRON, which is the last on our list, we're going to talk briefly about him. He is also a pretty decent plug and play character. I mean, the ideal team you're probably running when you're getting ULTRON is going to be something like Rocket, Groot, the Star-Lord, and then Minn-Erva, and then maybe Thanos, whatever you have to fit in that last slot. That is probably going to be one of the teams you can run to get ULTRON. But really, the thing that's all about him is he feeds energy, lots of energy to your allies, which allows them to keep taking as many turns as possible, to keep using their big abilities as often as possible. And of course, he had blinded that ability as well. He has a big assist. If you can call Rocket to assist on this, that's fantastic. But really, the main thing, the main bread and butter for him is being able to just constantly generate ability energy, reducing the cooldowns basically of your allies, whether it's through his clever distraction or improvisation. Most likely, it's going to be the first legendary character you unlock because it's pretty decent. It's pretty easy to get your Guardians up and running. And we talked about it very briefly. ULTRON. Now, ULTRON, I'll be honest. When you do unlock him for the first time, he's gonna be a huge character. But more towards the end game, especially with him not having red stars and Black Bolt being kind of around everywhere, I can tell the viability of ULTRON's being chopped down a little bit. But don't let that fool you. He's a very solid character. He still puts out great damage, and I use him especially for the raids that I do. I use him for raids reluctantly in Dark Dimension. I'd rather have Minn-Erva at Gear 14 for Dark Dimension over ULTRON, but still, the great thing about it, he can call in some ULTRON minions, and then you're going to be able to have people that heal up your team, cleanse ULTRON, provide speed and damage through all these possible summons that he's going to be bringing in. And Purge system is a pretty big hit. We have other great characters like Black Bolt that can also put out some pretty absurd damage, but especially when you unlock ULTRON for the first time, this attack is going to be wonders. It does a lot of damage, but really, I find him more as a support character nowadays to try to get someone to 25%. Black Bolt will finish them off, and then the factor upgrades, bringing in minions to support the team, heal up the team, and then Disintegration Beam, it's pretty nice because he could steal buffs from the enemy, and then of course he takes the taunt off himself. So this character is an important milestone character to chase after, or cornerstone character, I should say. You're gonna get your Star-Lord. You're gonna get the Minn-Erva. Hopefully, if you log in July, you'll get her for free. She's a tough character to farm, and then you'll be able to get yourself an ULTRON. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be our top 10 characters in Marvel Strike Force, and hopefully, kind of gives you a decent idea how the meta looks like inside of Marvel Strike Force, because there are characters needed for so many different events, and there aren't a lot of characters that just rule the entire game. You want a big roster, a lot of different teams, and a lot of different characters that are so important and plug and play to help you enjoy the Marvel Strike Force experience. Like if you did enjoy the video, comment down below. I wish I can add more characters. We can make a top 30. There are so many great characters, but I think these are some of the 10 staple characters you want to know and you want to have in Marvel Strike Force. And again, be sure to check out Marvel Strike Force in July if you're a new player. Those Minn-Erva rewards are very juicy. And if you're an endgame player, you probably are going to need some more Minn-Erva shards anyways, don't we all? All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Gary, roll out the outro. Gary, you're going to roll out the outro. There we go.